Hello. This happened to me a few months ago. I just need to share it with somebody. It all started at my friend's party. He's an artist who rented out a loft in an industrial part of town. If you can picture what a place like Detroit looked like in the 1920s, that's what this area looks like. Bunch of old turn of the century factories crammed into 10 blocks. Most of them are abandoned. So I partied a little too hard that night and decided to crash on a couch at the loft. Woke up at around 4 in the morning. The sun wasn't out yet, but you could still make things out in the dim blue light. So I went to the bathroom, carefully tiptoed around the people that were passed out on the floor. As I was taking a piss, I looked out the bathroom window and saw the panorama of deserted urban decay. I remembered how much I liked places like this. It was so dark and devoid of life, and strangely serene. I went back to the couch and I tried to fall asleep. After 45 minutes of staring up at the ceiling, I decided I didn't want to be there any longer. So I swallowed my pride and decided to wake my girlfriend up to beg her for a ride. Just walking around the vacant streets of that time was simply not an option. Being an awesome girlfriend, she was totally cool with it. She told me she'd be there in about half an hour. She'd give me a call when she was outside. Fortunately, my phone died 10 minutes later, so I decided I'd sit by the window and watch for her car. Sat there for a while. Eventually, my eyes started getting heavy, and I began to doze off. The crashing noise outside woke me up. It wasn't loud, but enough to snap me back into reality. I looked out the window and scanned the area, but I didn't see anything. However, across the street from the loft, near a mountain of garbage bags and one of those enormous dumpsters, I did see a computer and monitor smashed against the floor that hadn't been there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went downstairs and greeted her. Just as I was about to get in the car, I remembered a friend of mine had blown out his power supply. So, I decided to walk over to the dumpster and see what I could salvage. The monitor was worthless, but the tower seemed to have suffered almost no damage, so I put it in the trunk and we drove off. Maybe a week had passed. I'd completely forgotten about the tower, till my girlfriend called to let me know that it was still in the trunk and that she wanted it out. So that night I brought it home. Before I took it apart, I decided to hook it up to my monitor to see if it still worked. To my surprise, it did. It ran Windows XP. Looked like it had been wiped clean. I decided to do searches for words like, I'm sorry, but tits and pussy. Hopes of finding some secret stash full of, weird deviant porn the previous owner forgot about. Anyway, morbid curiosity, I guess. My search came up with nothing. There were no picture files. Then I searched for movies and one came up. It was an AVI inside a folder titled Barbie, hidden in the Windows System 32 directory. I played it. This is where it gets disturbing. The movie was about an hour long. It was made up of what seemed like raw exported footage. The footage was of this woman sitting on a chair and talking about God. Okay. She was talking against a white backdrop. Talking about. No, I skipped through most of the movie and it was all the same continuous shot. That's the key. What was she talking about? I don't know. I decided to sit through the footage to find out what she was actually talking about. I did. But 15 seconds into it, the audio became extremely awful and her voice was drowned in harsh, static background noise. Couldn't make out a thing. That disturbs me for some reason. Imported the footage into Final Cut and tried to mess with the levels to isolate her voice. Oh, it helped a little, but I still couldn't hear what she was saying. But I was intrigued. Began to really pay attention to her face and body language. Seemed that she was being asked questions because she stopped at times to listen and then continued to talk. About 15 minutes into the footage, her face began to redden and contort, as if the questions were bothering her, but she continued to answer them anyway. Shortly after, she started to cry. She sobbed hysterically for the duration of the film. One of the very few words I could actually lip read was skin. She repeated this word many times throughout the footage, and at one point she even pulled at the skin from her arm and mouthed the word. She seemed to be unhappy with her skin. Kept on building and building, and about 40 minutes in, she was crying so hard she could barely look at the camera. She stopped talking at this point. The rest of the footage was just her crying with her head down. Oddly enough, she didn't get up or move. The screen just faded to black. I was friggin' dumbfounded. I played the whole thing through many times that night, trying to find inflections and nuances in her movement that reveal anything else about what was going on. I felt so dissatisfied. I wanted to know more. That was when I noticed that there were about 10 more minutes left on the timeline after the screen went black. 2 minutes past the darkness, there was more footage. The footage was extremely shaky, almost unwatchable, depicted a pair of legs walking along train tracks. My guess is that camera was accidentally left on as it was being carried somewhere. The person in this video walked along the train tracks for maybe 6 minutes and turned into the forest and walked over what looked like foliage flattened by a piece of plywood. The person continued on this makeshift plywood road up until the clip ended. My heart started beating with excitement because there were train tracks a few miles away that looked very similar to the ones in the video. I had to check this out. So I called up my friend Ezra. 6'4", about 250 pounds of, I'd say mostly muscle. I convinced him to go on a little adventure with me. I'm no pushover myself, but I felt it. If I was to go wandering in the woods looking for, well, no, God knows what, some extra muscle couldn't hurt. The whole idea of investigating this video had me so excited I couldn't sleep. The next morning on a sunny Saturday, I took my flashlight, camera, and 7-inch Kabar knife with a matte black finish and serrated edge. And I went to pick up Ezra. When I got to his house, he wasn't even awake. I woke him up, and he pretty much told me to just fuck right off. I was already packed. I'd mentally prepared myself for this, so I decided to go through with it without him. I parked my car at the train station, took my stuff, I hopped onto the tracks. After walking for maybe 2 hours, I saw a broken piece of plywood. Well, my knees almost buckled with excitement. Searched the nearby foliage, and there it was, a little plywood trail leading off into the forest. I walked slowly along the trail, paying close attention to everything. I would stop occasionally, kneel down, and listen for anything or, anyone, but it was so quiet. This was one of the most nerve-wracking things I'd ever done. I didn't know what to expect at the end of this trail. The dense tree line gave way to a little island of grassy field, and then I saw it. A house being consumed by the forest. From the look of it, no one had lived there for, 20, maybe 30 years. Got my camera and snapped a few pics. A few yards away from the house was a tool shed, I'd say made of rusty sheet metal. Just sat there among the trees for a bit, absorbing everything. I didn't want to go into an open field. I had a bad feeling that something would see me. So it took me a little while to muster the courage to go up to the house. The door was partly opened. I pushed it in with a flashlight and was relieved that the inside was actually very well lit. Put the flashlight away, got my camera, took a few more pics. There was no furniture. The floor was riddled with bricks, wood, and other rubble, and some of the walls had huge holes in them. When I went in further to explore, I saw some things I didn't pay much mind to in the moment, but now that I think about them in hindsight, they actually greatly disturb me. The first thing that seemed a little bit odd was that one of the doors in the first room that I presumed led to the basement seemed a little too new to be in this house. It was also the only door that was locked. Also, when I made my way up to the second floor, I saw some chairs and a fold-up table that also seemed a little too new to be there. But what disturbed me the most was the bathroom. The dust on the mirror had been wiped away, and in the bathtub I saw a clear plastic tarp that still had water droplets on it from when I presume it was the last wash clean. That was when I heard something moan really loud. I jumped the fuck out of the second-story window and ran back to the tracks. Halfway there, I realized the moaning was most likely a water pipe expanding or contracting. Puh. Oh, man. That little moment of relief gave way to horror when I wondered why the water would be running in an abandoned house in the middle of the friggin' woods. You know, it's been a little more than 2 months since all this happened. I haven't gone back there, to be quite honest with you. I don't plan to.